Okay. So welcome to part 2, guys. I had to relocate. You have to serve your civilization. And then, through the journey of your experience, you will be able to look back, and that's the commanding part. Rabindranath Tagore says, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. That means that's the state where service is joy. If we can get that pattern going in civilization, that it brings people joy, that their civilization advances and they see its update, you know, the thing is, we keep forgetting that we are on a rock in the middle of nowhere and we sparked language. And there's, believe it or not, this kind of epic hollowness to every concept, that where did the concept come from and what was reality like before the concept. I personally am aware of a memory of my childhood where it was even before I learned language. I just remember just looking at the room, as a child. There was the presence me, there was the presence of a me, but there wasn't the individual conscious me in my psychology. I was like maybe very young, maybe like 9 months or something. I just remember seeing, I remember the cradle, I remember these two cradles, and I remember being on this kind of elevated platform. This is just like a memory from my childhood. It's not, it's not too abstract, but I'm saying it was pre-thought. It was a state where thought, ideology, um, we hadn't forgotten that its language is a suit we're wearing, just to be a creature in the moment to each other. It's like I call it the linguistic simulation. So what's going to happen is that we're going to come maybe towards a silent point in civilization. We're going to have rhythmic movement. That means I've looked at creativity, I've looked at knowledge, and I'm like, what is the edge of knowledge? And I've realized it becomes an unknown rhythm, and that's innovation. So the thing is, it's like the educational system is kind of strange because it's like one system, even though it branches out into various directions, but it's one type of system, okay, for 8 billion different DNAs, 8 different billion kinds of human beings. Now the thing is, I feel the world doesn't need to teach, it needs to provide resources, and those conscious of the resources can be aware of it, you know? It's like a new era where we're not just existing as bodies and we're not trying to constantly see the mind as a subject. We're realizing it's this kind of existential process where experience oscillates in and out of consciousness too. So it's like right now, I want you to just like if you're indoors, just touch a wall, touch something, put your palm on some object, you know? And realize that this existence is gonna be around, but you may not. It's like put your palm on a wall and high five existence. I have spoken about this idea of civilization 2.0, but in this talk, I'm not. I'm going to try to walk a different trail, a trail less traveled by, and so anybody who wants to know my opinion on like the civilization in the future, just search Civilization 2.0 Mr. Within, you'll find it. But what I'm saying is, like, in this episode, I was really thinking, like, how would the future happen? Like, even if I was an immortal being right now, like, how would it happen? Whether the person was temporary or eternal, what would the series of events go? And it's kind of weird because it's like this system where it has chaotic dimensions. That means certain things are happening randomly, and even if you attempt to control it too much, you can't. You know, it's like you can't touch the inside of your hand. You know what I mean? You can't. Very simply, I mean, I by nature look at things as a designer. That means there's no story, there's no character and setting. You just look at how phenomena happens. It's kind of like no longer trying to predict the weather and looking at how the weather is happening. Now, it's kind of strange because based on the selflessness and selfishness of the person, civilization's direction changes more drastically. You know, that means if you kind of like be like, yo, this world is messed up, I'm gonna go live in the mountains. Like that's like an angle where it's as if you didn't solve the problem, you just went away from it. You know, the other angle is what I feel is like the future generations, the advanced communicators will be, is that they're going to realize the past is not giving them freedom, and they're going to give themselves their own freedom. And we see this through every counterculture to anything. We have consciousness, which means we can direct the speed of nature. We can also direct what nature does to some degree. If we felt the environmental issues weren't a problem, there would still be the problem of realizing whether you gotta find meaning in life or whether you gotta create it. You know, when it comes to your inner realms behind your eyes, you gotta have the responsibility of realizing your attention is on a blank page. But in front of your eyes, reality has a sort of design. It's like in front of your eyes, it's imagination that's already there. It's given imagination. It's like reality has a design. I don't need to think about the shape of this computer I'm using. I can just see the shape, you know? It has a design. I don't need to visualize the design, what I'm saying. For now, it seems the algorithm to an advanced civilization is stoic. That means it's behavioral. That means human beings are not just rational creatures that we sit down and kind of like try to calculate how to build an advanced civilization. There's a lot of unknown variables because of the emotion the human being has. You know, they asked this neurologist and like something in these lines, and it was like the neurologist is like, when I look at my daughter, I'm not thinking like, look at all those neutrons getting, leading to that cuteness, you know. So the guy, even though we perceive a certain dimension of phenomenology in a certain way, doesn't mean that's the whole phenomenology. The value of life, just the fact that even we wake up the next day to go do something. It's all about that unknown dimension, and it's like every day you go on this unknown climb and you come back. You know, I mean, on some level, wherever you are, just the fact that you wake up and you go to sleep. You know, the simulation of reality, meaning, the search for life, for all of this, the person's trying really hard, but in deep sleep, they're not even a concept. Like how chaotically mysterious the nature of reality is. That it's our attention that keeps the meaning of the world where we look. And I feel attention is energy conscious of itself unconditionally. That means whatever you do in the conscious waking state, that means regardless of what the person does, the person doesn't lose the personhood. Even though their inner realms could deviate from how one person sees how the world is and how another person sees how the world is. Ask yourself that if you were the pilot of your attention, how would you pilot your inner realms? And let's say after you've piloted your inner realms to the greatest desire, let's say you got everything you wanted in this life. What then? Let's even say you knew everything in this life. What then? This question, what then, is so powerful that it's like the inevitable possibility of whatever circumstance that happens. That means it's like the human being experiences suffering on this planet, and as the human being goes through the suffering, is like, what then? There was this story I heard from Sadhguru. He said he went to this, Sadhguru is like this Indian mystic, and Sadhguru, he goes to this vegetable market, and he sees, and in his words, a shining being. He's looking at this vegetable market, and he sees this incredibly like illuminated kind of realized being, you know. Sadhguru says he goes up to the vegetable stand owner, and they both look at each other and they start laughing, and Sadhguru says, "Why are you selling vegetables? Why are you here?" In Sadhguru's eyes, it was like two enlightened people talking. Okay? And so Sadhguru looks at the guy and he's like, "Hey man, it's like, you're so enlightened. Why are you selling vegetables here?" And so they sit down, and the guy tells Sadhguru the story that in India they have these messed up hospitals, and I mean, not messed up. It's just, let's say, underdeveloped or could be better developed. But they have these hospitals, and it's kind of very hard. And certain people of, lower class, they feel they are shattered by the hard conditions of it. So this guy's pretty much gets this goes through this condition, and he's there every day on the bed, wondering why he's alive. Sadhguru, the guy tells Sadhguru that he was there kind of feeling he was left there to kind of dissolve and transition out of this realm. And then he realized his true nature. That means when he reached a certain state of mind where life was moving more than his mind, you know, that means it's like either matter moves first or the mind moves the matter first. The mind moves first. When the mind moves first, that's what observance is. That's what conscious mindfulness is. A civilization that looks for itself. A civilization that, while it's alive, if it can see a better way of things being done, must attempt it. That is the honor that I'm speaking about, that an advanced civilization needs. It's the honor like, oh my God, like it could be so much better. Now, the advantage is kind of like a puzzle too. Why? Because human beings are so different, and not only people have different ages, different interests, different kind of ambitions, different visions. It's kind of like, and when you look at it from an aerial view, it's kind of like a brain. It's like civilization is like the brain, you know? It's like human beings are not all designed to be one kind of human being. We weren't designed to be clones, you know? And so what does that mean? That means our the fact that we're different is an advantage. And the way I see it is, if we all just believe in materialism, what does that mean? That means everybody is seeing the same thing, and that means that there is one view. But if we notice for a second, everybody has this unknown conscious interpretation of what the world is. That means when I look at 8 billion human beings on a rock, I'm also being like, whoa, 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 whoa. Does that mean there's 8 billion inner realms? There's 8 billion views, unique views on the world? And I was like, booyah, that's it. That's our ticket. The fact that we are different human beings with different visions of life, and it's not about this is right, that is right. We have to kind of be inspired by. We have to create a civilization where it's healthy to share the inner realms. Right now, it's unhealthy. People don't feel like life. They feel they have to be a bit kind of intense. Civilization is tense. It's like the end of the concrete jungle era. We just gotta endure it for maybe like 20 years, and then 20, 30 years, that it's going to be such a different state of mind, I feel. What does humanity really deserve? I feel really everybody's in just hovering in their inner realms, and unless they can find a way that whatever kind of ability, imagine every human being is an instrument, and in this life your task is to discover the nature of this instrument and play it, demonstrate the ability of your energetic existence. You know, there was something in my life, there was a time where pre 2011, I remember even my mind had sort of, I was way more of a kind of savage minded person. And I had this mentality of wanting just things to be there. You know, this kind of mentality pre 2011. Then I kind of saw it that it's like when you feel when you feel others know, you stop actually asking the big questions yourself. Every conscious living being is part of the symphony of nature. It makes you break from the inferior desires towards the superior virtues as a human being. You see, we are kind of like half animal, half known animal, half unknown. Call it whatever you like. I'm old school, so I call it soul. Because the word soul's got soul, guys. You know, some musicians make. It's just the demonstration of the ability, the expression of the human being as if you are. Uh, behind your eyes, it's unknown. In front of your eyes, it's known. A certain percentage of the day we're in the conscious waking stage, a certain percentage of the day we may appear in the dream stage, or it may just be deep sleep until we wake up. Whatever it is, the human being requires to have sensitivity, and sensitivity means suddenly the human being becomes aware of something that it wasn't. That means if every day you're becoming aware of something that a way the world was that you weren't aware of, that's kind of like a successful day. You know, it's kind of like even if you just go your solo route, you know, you only go your own way. You just go your own way. After a while, you're going to be like, it's like, who likes to stand on a mountain peak alone? There's this story of these three friends, these three Sufi friends, and they're walking by the edge of town and they notice there's this giant wall. And they see this giant ladder that goes up the wall, and two friends hold it, and one of the friends goes up. They're like, this wall wasn't here yesterday. What is this? What is this wall at the edge of our town? You know, who's running this nation? And the three friends, this is like an old story from back in the day. These three Sufi friends, one of them goes up and he looks at what's there and he says, "Oh my God, the Garden of Paradise," and he jumps in instantly. The first friend, when he jumps in, the two friends are like, "Whoa." And so one friend that's left holds it, and one of the friends goes up the ladder out of the two friends. The friend goes up the ladder, reaches the top of the ladder, and looks at it, and it's like, "Oh my God." And what he actually sees, like the first friend, is actually, it's a heavenly dimension. It's like paradise, it's heaven on the other side of this wall. The second friend is about to jump in, and suddenly he remembers the friend that's down there, and he's like, "Let me tell him," because he has to climb the ladder alone. And the friend says, "Hey man, up here is the Garden of Paradise." The first friend jumped in. "I'm gonna jump in too, you know," and he jumps in instantly. The two friends are gone. The third friend is left with the ladder, and nobody's there to hold the ladder for the third friend. The third friend goes up the ladder. The ladder shakes, but he manages to just climb this ladder. And he goes up the wall, and his eyes find the Garden of Paradise, heaven, a heavenly dimension. And so this man is looking at this heavenly dimension, and every part of his being, every intuition, conscience, whatever is telling him, "Go, your life is complete. Your life is complete, it's done." This man raises his foot, and suddenly he says, "Oh my God, this Garden of Paradise is here. The Garden of Paradise is here. The whole world should know." And it's that moment where the gods are even taking notes, poetically, poetically speaking. So what does that mean? The third friend climbs down the ladder and comes and lets the world know. And that's the same thing, that we have outer technologies that revolutionize the way we live, and we also have inner technologies, which are angles and views upon this world where every person is their own eyes, yet we see the same thing. And I call it your outer realms in front of your eyes, behind your eyes, the inner realms. And I will say this as much as until it catches on. You know. Because then you can totally realize, for example, person A is somewhere, and person B comes to person A, and person B says something terrible about person A to person A. Person A is there, and person A doesn't say anything. And then person B is shocked, and person B says, "Why aren't you responding to what I'm saying?" And person A says, "Because I know you don't have my eyes." So you see, that's the kind of strange thing about life, that we look for people who understand us, yet nobody has our eyes. How could they? So that's the incredible thing. Even the Buddha said it, that in this life it's kind of like a solo journey, and if there's comrades or companions and whatnot, it's a blessing. It's like an advantage. It's a luxury. But don't realize that suddenly you're still in the battlefield. You know. We're all trying to use the Dharma as a raft to go through samsara. Mr.Within is saying it's no longer, the path is no longer in books. God is tired of reading. The era of trying to see how we, with a few ingenious chess moves, every system can update. And honestly, you just have to have patience and look at the system, and your mind will suddenly go into this processing mode. Let me tell you the secret to nature, speaking the language of nature. It's concentration and getting acquainted with your attention and having moments of experience with your own being where you're trying to process what is all of this, you know? And when you realize nobody knows, you liberate yourself from all the suffering that you imposed because it was micro suffering. In a macro way, we're all suffering in the sense that we're like, we can't see the edge of the universe. Oh my God, how do we measure it? So that's what I'm saying. We gotta kind of use communication to our advantage. And I hope one day people realize they can communicate about the unknown. That the most exciting things are strange at first. Some people call it the spirit in the machine. I forget the French philosopher's name. But Mr.Within calls it the spirit in the design. And that for the first time we're wondering about the architecture of energy in relationship to the psychology that feels has a free will to define itself, identify with something new. It's so fascinating because you could totally see it that human consciousness and human conscious existence is a certain speed, and if we surpass that speed, it's going to shake the human ideology. When the human ideology shakes, when any human being feels like a cornered animal, they would rage. What does that mean? That means there is the animal nature, and feeling like a cornered animal. Literally, I've in my childhood, I saw that in Iran, like this dog was being cornered, and they were trying to cut the ear of the dog to make the dog more vicious and savage, so it defends the yard. And I was like, what the, like it was insane. But at the same time, it was something that just happened, and I was like looking at reality and being like so many unknown variables. Like the fact that I exist is like I feel like that's the miracle. It's like, oh my God, I woke up, another day, incredible. Slow hand clap for some sort of evolutionary continuity. So, welcome to the chat section. By the way, anybody tuning in, this is part 2 of a talk I was giving earlier. Now, the thing is that part 1, I think until a couple hours won't be posted. So, you're listening to part 2, so just go with the flow. At the end, there's going to be Q&A, and I'll respond to any ideas people have. But just the whole inspiration is that if you, like usually when you look at instruction and when you look at the morality of human beings of what is right and wrong, they've had references of it. And these references, whether they come from texts, whether they come from experiences of certain results of actions, you know, beyond stories, we are rhythms of experience. We have to prepare 8 billion human beings, just like how you see those birds fly together. Let me find this video and share it for people. So I shared the link in the chat section. I feel this needs to happen to humanity. It's like, let me see if I don't know if I could take a picture of it. Let me see. Okay, there we go. Guys, just a second, I'm trying to find the best picture here. Okay, this works. Alright guys, here. This is the picture I wanted to show you. This is what I feel requires to happen to humanity, and it happens beyond a linguistic relationship with reality where your inner realms are just justifying the value. It's like we get to discriminate between the inner realms and the outer realms. The outer realms in any situation in this life can immediately be brought into a point where it's all just purely an objective relationship. And objects, their relationship with one another is empty. It's only with the positioning of a subject where objects begin having more than just being objects. Unleash your genius upon the world that you're in once. Do not fear the potential of the civilization, and do not even think of the failure, because it's an unknown factor. And as long as humanity can pilot around the unknown factor, we're kind of safe. You see, it's all about cultivating the soil where human beings are sprouting from. And it's kind of wondering about how the child enters this world and what kind of story begins taking the shape of the child. Before technology, it was very strange. Before film, it was very strange. It was every person was environmentally being kind of reconditioned and sculpted to be who they are. But when suddenly information began becoming globalized, people started to get their definitions from pixels. Because you can totally see a child being raised in front of a TV, and all the characters in the TV are identifications with reality. The child has to wonder about that relationship. You know, anything your mind sees, your subconscious is already thinking about it. It has already observed the design. I have a segment in these episodes where I call it a quote tunnel, where I go look at a certain theme. Or a certain person in history and what they have said. So guys, I'm just going to read some quotes of various people who've kind of talked about the future in different ways. Friedrich Nietzsche says the future influences the present just as much as the past. Winston Churchill says if we open a quarrel between past and present, we shall find that we have lost the future. Winston Churchill again says, it is always wise to look ahead, but difficult to look further than you can see. Bob Marley says every man got a right to decide his own destiny. Marcus Aurelius says never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. This is an incredible quote I'm going to share. Malcolm X says, education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Desmond Tutu I believe it's Bishop Desmond Tutu. Without forgiveness, there's no future. Oscar Wilde says the only difference between the saint and the sinner is that every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. That means, the guys, in that quote from Oscar Wilde, it's a very interesting quote because it means everybody has a past and future. Everybody can be trying to be deconstructed ad infinitum. The ability of the mind is when it concentrates, it endlessly animates. Just the fact that there's a past and a future. Everybody's got a past. That means it's like that quote where they said everybody's fighting a battle you can't see. It's a very mystical quote, really. Abraham Lincoln says, "You cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today." Barack Obama says, "The future rewards those who press on." I don't have time to feel sorry for myself. I don't have time to complain. I'm going to press on. Oprah Winfrey says, "When I look into the future, it's so bright it burns my eyes." Niels Bohr says, "Prediction is very difficult, especially if it's about the future." Jack Welch says, "Control your own destiny, or someone else will." Coco Chanel says, "Elegance is not the prerogative of those who have just escaped from adolescence, but of those who have already taken possession of their future." Nikola Tesla says, "Let the future tell the truth and evaluate each one according to his work and accomplishments. The present is theirs. The future for which I've really worked is mine." John F. Kennedy says, "For time and the world do not stand still. Change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or the present are certain to miss the future." Albert Ellis says, "The best years of life are the ones in which you decide your problems are your own. You do not blame them on your mother, the ecology, or the president. You realize that you control your own destiny." What an incredible sentence. I feel this is a quote that probably should be shared in social media right now. Like, I don't know, somebody share this quote with the world. Albert Einstein says, "I never think of the future. It comes soon enough." Albert Einstein says, "The unleashed power of the atom has changed everything save our modes of thinking, and we thus drift toward unparalleled catastrophe." Albert Einstein says, "The distinction between the past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion." Mahatma Gandhi says, "I do not want to foresee the future. I am concerned with taking care of the present. God has given me no control over the moment following." Again, Albert Einstein says, "I do not believe that civilization will be wiped out in a war fought with the atomic bomb. Perhaps 2/3 of the people of Earth will be killed." Whoa, heavy. Confucius. Confucius say, "Study the past if you would divine the future." Okay, Confucius says, "If you think in terms of a year, plant a seed. If in terms of 10 years, plant trees. If in terms of 100 years, teach the people." Wow. Guys, this is the website I'm reading from. I'm going to share it in the chat section here. William Shakespeare says, "It is not in the stars to hold our destiny, but in ourselves." Marcus Aurelius says, "Look back over the past, with its changing empires that rose and fell, and you can foresee the future too." Edmund Burke says, "You can never plan the future by the past." Steve Jobs says, "You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. This approach has never let me down, and it has made all the difference in my life." Dr. Seuss, "Only you can control your future." Albert Camus says, "Real generosity toward the future lies in giving all to the present." Bob Dylan says, "Well, the future for me is already a thing of the past." Wayne Dyer says, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, "Stop acting as if life is a rehearsal. Live this day as if it were your last. The past is over and gone. The future is not guaranteed." George Carlin says, "There's no present. There's only the immediate future and the recent past." Let's see what else there's. Elon Musk says, "If humanity doesn't land on Mars in my lifetime, I would be very disappointed." See, guys, go big or go home. That's the only way. Victor Hugo says, "There's nothing like a dream to create the future." Elon Musk says the future of humanity is going to bifurcate in two directions. Either it's going to become multiplanetary, or it's going to remain confined to one planet, and eventually there's going to be an extinction event. George Santayana, "We must welcome the future, remembering that soon it will be the past, and we must respect the past, remembering that it was once all that was humanly possible." Ayn Rand says, "Upper classes are a nation's past, the middle class is its future." Wow. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, "Look not mournfully into the past, it comes not back again. Wisely improve the present, it is thine. Go forth to meet the shadowy future without fear and with a manly heart." OG, literally the first name is OG, the letter O and G. Og Mandino. Tomorrow is only found in the calendar of fools. Okay, that's deep. Henry Ward Beecher. We steal if we touch tomorrow. It is God's. Andrew Carnegie. Do your duty and a little more, and the future will take care of itself. That's an incredible quote. That's literally like, that could be an emotion I feel every day. Malala Yousafzai says, if you don't focus on the future generation, it means you're destroying your country. That makes sense. Alan Watts. I have realized that the past and future are real illusions, that they exist in the present, which is what there is and all there is. Alan Watts says, no work or love will flourish out of guilt, fear, or hollowness of heart, just as no valid plans for the future can be made by those who have no capacity for living now. And Jose Rizal says, the youth is the hope of our future. And that's the thing. That means we have to think of getting... That's the end of the quote tunnel, guys. You know. The thing is, it's like really people, their lives are being either defined by their past based on where they are in the present or what they can do in the future, is it not? That means everybody is wearing time differently. As if time is a scarf. Or time is a jacket. Everybody's... I mean, a jacket you can't really wear it too many different ways, you know. I mean, technically, you could just put the jacket on your shoulder, and that'd be kind of wearing a jacket in a weird way. You know, it's not just the children, guys. It's the vision of the future generations. It's how far they can see and how much they care for what they see. If they care for what they see, it's like the parent of that child has raised a good human being. But if your child doesn't care for what they see, that means they have chosen to become disconnected from the only civilization or species. It's like the species has only come like, you know, this far. You know, to children who may live to see the next 1,000 years, we're kind of like their pioneers. We're like savage, like the way I'm speaking right now probably is going to be like savage caveman, like sounding to people like, 2,000 years. All language will appear that way to them. So anyways, guys, I'll leave you off with 3 words. Rise, mankind, rise. Somehow this has to advance. That's the only game left to play. After you achieve whatever desire you want in life, the ultimate will be this, that people are going to be like, okay, we got one shot at an advanced civilization. Kind of like Eminem on the stage of that 8 Mile movie moment for the 6th species, though. Rise, mankind, rise. If you remember one thing from these talks, remember those 3 words. So guys, this is the end of the talk at this point. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm gonna open it up to Q&A for 5 minutes, and thanks for tuning so far. So ask your question in the Q&A in the chat section, and I'll enter cyberspace to respond. Okay, guys, there seems to be no questions. That's excellent, excellent. um, I was just thinking of saying this one last thing, that really we got to plant the seeds, because every person's life is kind of like we can't ignore the temporary dimension. I'm not telling people should sacrifice themselves for civilization. I'm saying that they should find ways that the way they live, it's also simultaneously advantageous, as if they were thinking what the whole species would do. And it's like nobody knows who you are unless you kind of living is a sort of like ultimate communication. The poet Rumi says, be living poetry. That means there's a poetry that you find in books and written form. And then there's a poetry that is just when you trust life and advance to see what its next dimensions are, you know? The future commands your attention because we have to build it. You know, they say the best way to predict the future is to build it. We gotta get some sort of global game going in trying to usher forth an advanced civilization through an educational reform where children feel like there's something bigger going on here, a bigger event, you know? When there's nothing going on, when the civilization is not advanced, people have no choice than to just look at themselves. This is why most people, they're suffering. It's just their suffering. They're not thinking about how the person on the street is suffering. They're thinking, how am I suffering? Why am I stressed? They're not thinking how 8 billion human beings are being conducted on this planet. So you see, it's kind of like this thing that we, because there is no greater world to live for, we have to look for inspiration within for now, until we can build an advanced civilization that kind of inspires people to a skill-oriented civilization. Imagine, like, I remember what was the movie called? Kung Fu Hustle or something. It was a comedy movie, but in the movie, it's like the average people in the village. Each of them was like a martial arts master of some martial arts form. You know, I feel the only algorithm to live for life is to live for life, and that means the personal life cares for serving how far the eyes of the species can go. You know, your eyes see a certain extent, but the future is, it belongs to how far we, in what advanced way we contribute. You know, and that means it's like I'm Mr. Within is kind of saying, like, instead of thinking one step ahead, think 10 steps ahead. Don't fear it. Try to fathom 10 steps ahead, and you're gonna notice that your mind has attempted higher probability the whole time. So don't fear the edge of your endless endurance and master your, enlighten your skill. Bring your own skill to your own, become conscious of it. And then eventually, I think every human being goes and it's like we become part of the events. We live as, it's like living in a, like, let's say a concert happening, like an alien would look at that concert and be like, okay, this is like some event. You know, it's an event, and it's like it's like on some level like looking at a beehive. You know, let's say if the stage of the concert was actually made like a beehive. You know. Anyways, guys, I think to honor Tanner McKenna would be the archaic revival of the unknown. The unknown is where knowledge is born. You know. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. Much blessings and always.